Good evening and welcome to this evening's Board of Education study session meeting on November 22nd. I call this meeting to order at 5:31. Ms. Janoon, please take roll.
Mrs. Berry.
Here.
Mr. Baydoun.
Here.
Ms. Elzayat.
Here.
Ms. Fawaz.
Here.
Myself, I'm here. Ms. Kaminsky.
Here.
Mr. Saba.
Here.
And Chair of a quorum.
Okay. I just want to start off, if I can, by congratulating Mr. Hassan Baydoun and welcome aboard. We're thrilled to have you join us.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Okay, roll call. We'll do the pledge with the regular board meeting. So we're going to start with topics of discussion. Dr. Masala?
So Madam President, Board, I changed the study session items because I do not believe we have time to have those discussions today because of other matters that I emailed the board. I don't know if the board wants to go into closed session on that matter, if they'd like to stay open in reference to what I emailed and sent the board today, Madam President.
I would prefer to go into closed session because I don't want to get any, can we say the purpose of the meeting so we have it on record?
It's a discussion of COVID and the district in reference to where we're at with our numbers and where we need to be.
My worry is that a closed session item?
Madam Chair,
Because isn't it for employment? Go ahead, Mr.
if I
Sabo.
may, I think it's my own opinion to have it an open session, just so
Yeah, I
that the
didn't-
public can hear what the superintendent is thinking instead of just making a
Yeah, I
decision.
didn't realize that it was gonna be just that, so yeah, I guess my concern would be, is it appropriate for us to go into closed session if we're talking about that?
The only,
Unless we're talking about an employee situation, or,
if we keep it an open session, I can't give any, I won't give names as it is because of FERPA law, but I can't give a lot of specific details in reference to positions or such, or classrooms, because then people can try to make their own determinations or guesses.
confidentiality, okay, that makes sense. Can we take a vote to see how many wanna go into closed?
Are you still planning on giving us the names of the teachers in the classroom? Is that what you're saying?
No,
So you're not giving the names in the classrooms regardless if we go into closed? That's,
if we go into closed session, I can speak about specific classrooms, but then I won't be giving specific names of any individuals. But the problem then forth is I don't want to have assumptions made.
Madam
Yes.
Chair.
right, but are we allowed to? I guess I'm just concerned because we've had this issue once before where we just went into closed and then we weren't supposed to.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to make sure. Go ahead, Ms. Elzayat.
Well, I'm wondering, can we go into closed session, hear the confidential information, and then
And then
come
come
back
back
into open
to
and
open.
discuss?
We could do that.
I don't know if there is confidential information. I mean, you can speak freely on that, not without mentioning names, or just, he's gonna mention classrooms. I think it's more on the percentages of kids that have COVID or the staff that have contracted COVID, more so than anything else.
But he's saying that he will be specifically talking about certain classrooms, which will lead,
Well, no, what I'm saying
Hold
is
on.
I can't answer any questions concerning specific classrooms if we're in
That's
open
what
session.
I heard, yeah, that's what
I wanted to make it clear before questions are asked.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just making it clear what I can and can't answer.
Okay.
That's all.
then I'm gonna suggest that we stay in open session, just so we don't, we protect everyone. So, but go ahead, you can start.
Okay, so board, today I was sharing information with the board, and I want to talk about a specific uptrend that is occurring. So, as everyone in the community is aware, we ended up going virtual at Riverside Middle School a few weeks back because the numbers started to rise. when we look at the numbers, we're not looking at specifically only just positives. There are other elements at play. A lot of times, people want to have, like, what's a cutoff number? It's not that simple. It's looking at where are we, where are the trends, what is happening. And when Riverside, the trend at Riverside was that we were starting to get a high positive and quarantine rate in 5th grade. And then it went to 6th, and then it started trickling into 7th. At that time, when we were looking at the number of students who were put into quarantine, we started identifying that it's going to be better for the students to slow the spread and go virtual learning for that time, which we saw did have a positive impact on reducing our numbers. Upon return, Riverside was actually doing really well. The other element that we also keep into consideration are the positivity rates because of contact in classrooms or coming from outside of the school into the school. What I can say is this, based on the data that we have, and please note, this is part of my daily briefing. Okay, COVID numbers is part of my daily briefing, and I get updates regularly by the school nurse. Through this process, we start identifying that, and this is why I sent out the plea to the community when we did go virtual with Riverside, that if your child's ill, stay home. That if you come into contact, please follow these protocols. Because it's a community spread issue, as we know from day one. It's been that conversation, it's community spread. What we're starting to notice is that there's more and more positive rates and quarantines in the elementary than there were a month ago. In addition, we're seeing a steady trend. We're also starting to see quarantining and positivity rates as well as close contact concerns with staff. This was not something that was happening on a regular basis before. So now we have staff who have to quarantine. And
I'm sorry, quick question. You're saying you said a positivity rate because they're a close contact, or?
because they were considered close contact.
Okay.
More than 15 minutes within 6 feet to 3 feet of one another. And there could have been a time where they were, trying to do some work together. And as we know, there are times that, you may pull your mask down for a moment and put it back up. But there's also when you're working in small groups. You see, what people forget about education is this. We're not in the corporate sector, where us and everyone is separated by walls, separated by barriers. Some people can work from home, some people can't. We are trying to do everything in our power to create a learning environment as close as possible to what it was pre-COVID, even though it's not, but we're doing everything in our power. Our most at-risk students learn better in small group learning. So teachers are trying to do the best they can to have small group instruction, but with spacing. And sometimes exposures occur. I will tell you, I've been in all the schools, and specifically here in the high school, the last 2 weeks on a regular basis. And I can say to you, and wholeheartedly, that over 90-something% of the students I see in the hallways and the classrooms, they have their masks on. But every so often, we just got to do something like this, and they pull it back up, and they don't argue with you. But there are times when they don't. So back to where I was going. So what's happening and what we're seeing is that there's a lot of positive cases coming from outside of school into school, which is creating multiple quarantining scenarios. With this multiple quarantining scenarios, what's occurring is students, we have classrooms where, you have 7, 8 students who are in quarantine. You have teachers, you have some office personnel who are in quarantine. And looking at these numbers, and they're steadily increasing. Yes, they're not where they were at Riverside. I will tell you right now, I'm being 100% transparent. They are not where they were when we decided to go virtual for Riverside. But we're seeing a trend. And my concern as a superintendent of schools is that this trend is going to be exponentially larger, and it's a concern of mine, when we come back from Thanksgiving holiday. And the reason for that is because every community is different. One of the reasons why when COVID hit us at the Crestwood schools, and I was adamant at that time as a superintendent to do what we did, is because we have a very tight-knit community. And our community gets together, and that's a great thing. But it's also a difficult thing during this community spread in this situation. My philosophy is any decision that I'm going to make when it comes to the safety and well-being of our students will have possibly a short-term delay, but for a long-term success. And my concern is that if we aren't proactive after Thanksgiving, that these numbers could spike. I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong, and we come back from Thanksgiving and it doesn't spike. That could be the case. Or, God forbid, I could be right and there could be more community spread during the holiday break, and then the next thing I know, we're going to have to look at going virtual before Christmas break, the winter break. So when I look at the calendar and I say, if we come back from Thanksgiving break, we go 1 week live instruction virtual, that from there, it'll give our community an opportunity, hopefully, to do what needs to be done so that when we do come back to school, we can go up through the winter break with success, less disruptions, and then come back after the new year with more success. Now, people might say, well, how do you know people aren't going to get together during the new year? 100%. I can't say that. The thing with COVID, I think we've all understood, have come to know, there is no right or wrong answer. There is only what can we do that we feel is in the best interest of our community. And I will tell you right now, there is never going to be a time, and I don't think there has ever been a time, that I will come to the board and say, we need to do this where it benefits me. This doesn't benefit me. This actually hurts me because I know our kids like to be in school. I know our families like their kids to be in school. When I come here, there is no better feeling in the world when these kids come up to me and say, hey, Dr. M, or hey, Mr. Masala. That's what we're here for. But at the same time, these COVID numbers, especially with the fact that they're starting to hit our elementaries more than they have in the past, is concerning me. Moreover, we currently have, and it was in the memo, multiple hotspots, as well as multiple breakouts. Now, the definition is 3 or more within a specific group within 28 days, Dr. Lazar? 14 days, my apologies, because it always changes. Within 14 days. So when we look at these numbers, we're looking at where are there outbreaks in the last 14 days. In these last 2 weeks, we're seeing a steady increase. Now, tomorrow's the last day before the holiday. We want to finish it out strong. And, that's really, where our direction is. And again, I will reiterate, and for the community and for the parents, there is no number. There is no, when we hit this threshold, we have to look at where are our numbers going? How many hotspots do we have? How many outbreaks do we have? Where are those outbreaks occurring? And it comes down to where we feel, as a district administration, what is in the best case scenario for our students. So that's where that goes.
Ms. Janelle?
So I know it was mentioned at the last meeting that we had shut down, well, technically we didn't actually shut down last year because the students were not back in the building yet, and we had delayed them coming back in. When we decided to come back to school, we mentioned thresholds, we mentioned numbers, we mentioned what would make sense, because the idea was to bring them back to school, and yes, of course, try to keep them in school. When we shut down Riverside not too long ago, I think that it was we'd gotten the message on November 1st, so you're talking a couple weeks ago that the kids were out of the building for a week. With the numbers that we had seen there, I was in support of it. The idea was to slow the spread. Going into a 5-day weekend, I'm just a little confused as to why, with them not being in the building for that many days, why we would choose to stay another week. Whether or not we shut down for that, we can't control what anybody does outside of the building. And the whole idea was connecting them to school outbreaks, school spread, because that's where we would determine whether or not school needed to be shut down. Is if our students were spreading it.
Two questions, ma'am. Which last meeting are you speaking of?
You weren't here.
So then I was not
Yeah.
part of that conversation.
Oh, I'm not saying you were, I was just
But
referencing what was said.
but the board had a conversation about something that specifically impacts my decision-making.
Okay.
And I wasn't part of that conversation,
No,
so
no,
I
it
don't
was-
have that
I
information.
brought it up.
Yeah,
We should take a
Danielle
look
brought
at
it up.
Okay.
closing
We just
down.
want to make.
Sorry,
sure.
I just-
Exactly what you're saying, I
Okay.
brought up at the last meeting.
Well, I
Just
know
because I didn't
you
have
weren't-
that information, I was unaware.
You weren't aware of that comment being made?
I did not watch
Shutting-
that board meeting, no.
Okay,
Because
I
I
talked
was
to
under the
you.
impression it was just to bring in trustee Baydoun, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I wasn't aware that there was gonna be discussion.
okay. I thought Mrs. Berry said that you guys had that conversation, but maybe I'm wrong, so,
No.
Well, yeah, we talked about it yeah. I said to you that the discussion took place and we need to further talk about it.
You told me after the fact, yes. I did
Yeah.
not, I wasn't
No.
That's
aware.
what
I
that's what
wasn't aware
meant.
of the specific discussion. You just told me that the discussion took place and we gotta
Correct.
talk about it.
Correct.
But I wasn't aware that there were numbers or anything
No.
discussed.
There
No,
wasn't.
numbers
There
weren't
was no-
discussed.
Oh,
No,
I'm just going off of
No,
what trustee January
No, what I
said.
was
No.
saying was when
Okay.
we initially decided to come back to school, that's when numbers were discussed, not at the
Gotcha.
last meeting. I apologize.
No, no,
for
I
the
just
confusion.
wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, there
So
were no
I-
numbers discussed.
Yeah, okay.
When we initially came, look, I had a student say to me the other day, after the meeting that had taken place, and maybe they weren't meaning it in literal terms, but it's somebody that I know well, was just like, I'm gonna kill myself if I have to go virtual again. Like, these, and my girls as well, like, they are so stressed out from going this back and forth in virtual and not virtual, that I understand the need to keep everybody safe, but as a community in this district, we are doing the best we can. It is everybody else's responsibility when they leave the schools to make sure that they're doing their jobs. So as a school, I don't know what more we can do. When they leave this building, we can't control what's happening. And how do we keep, we gave the option of going virtual for those that did not feel comfortable coming back to school. Again, we do our job, we try to keep the kids safe, we are cleaning the buildings, we're letting families know when spread is happening, but it's not from them being in school. The majority of the cases are not from the kids being in school. It's from families attending parties, weddings. My sister is an event planner, and she's never been busier in her life because she's got so many parties and events that people are attending. So now the students, and including the families that have done their best to not attend those events, are going to get punished and not be able to be in school. I think we do have to have a metric. I think we do have to determine what are the numbers that we are going to look at, because if you look at these numbers from Riverside alone, you're not even talking about 0.5% of our student population, not even 0.5% being affected by, and I'm not saying that it's okay for anybody to have COVID. I'm just saying that as a district, we are doing what we can. What more can we do to keep our kids in the building? It's not in our hands, it's the families.
I guess if I can just quickly comment on it, I understand your frustration. I understand that where do you draw the line? Where do we draw the line?
Well, what happens after Christmas?
Right, I did receive a lot of calls this weekend. I guess there's events that have already been planned. I know that Attorney General Nestle's coming. How is this gonna be affected?
I'm fairly confident that she'll understand the situation and reschedule.
Okay.
I mean, we're not,
I might not wanna come.
yeah, I mean, that's true too, but,
Okay.
you know, because this is, you know, it's not a decision we're making that's a convenient, it's not a convenient
easy
decision.
decision
No.
without a doubt, but the other thing is, I did speak to the chief of staff for Wayne County, and he said that there was a meeting today, and that the county is not advising districts to shut down. Those were his exact words. He said, it's the district's decision.
Correct.
So why, I don't think that's fair. I think that somebody has to make the decision so it doesn't put us in that situation, but,
May I answer that?
sure.
And I'll be blunt.
Mhm.
I'm not making a political decision.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm not making a political decision, and I'm not saying that about anyone. I'm saying in general, because this has been the conversation since COVID started in 2020. Nobody wanted to make a difficult decision. What do? They push those difficult decisions down to us. And that's the same thing that's happening now. So I'm not saying anything specific. I'm telling you, and I know you're not, but I'm being honest. And,
I'm not.
if somebody gets upset with me for saying that, so be it. But since 2020.
Nobody's gonna
No,
get
no, I'm not
upset.
talking
We're
about
just
here.
trying
I'm
to
not
do
talking
it,
about
yeah.
here. I'm talking in
Yeah.
general. Since March of 2020, nobody from the top, from the very, very top, okay, was willing to say, you all should do this. It was always, we advise. Well, you know what? I'm looking at things in terms of 4,000 kids, 500 staff members. I love my community. I didn't apply to be the Crestwood School Superintendent because I wanted to be a superintendent. I applied because this community is our community, and I have a moral obligation to state how I feel is in the best interest for the community.
Ms. Kaminsky, go ahead.
I think that this board and the administration has to make hard decisions. A few years ago, we decided not to let the French club go to France. We cannot control what happens in France, but we still said they could not go because we were worried about their well-being. I talked to the chief of Providence Hospital today, Pulmonary Intensive Care Unit, Dr. Wasim Farah. I talked to the Garden City Hospital, Chief of Staff for Pulmonary Critical Care, Robert Grant. They both said the numbers are horrible, they're getting worse. Additionally, this weekend, I lost a 39-year-old friend from COVID, very healthy. He had it for 3 weeks. His wife's due to have a baby this Thursday or Friday. I know that doesn't make any difference on anything. The numbers are increasing. I think as a board member, I have a moral obligation for the safety of our kids, and I think we need to close down and do virtual.
Mr. Saba?
First
Thank
of all,
you.
Ms. Kaminsky, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank
That's horrible. I understand where Ms. Janoon's coming from. I think the frustration, based on the information that we've gotten over the last 18 months plus, has been scattered, to your point, and nobody has made a decision. And to Ms. Kaminsky's point, these decisions are not easy. I have 3 children in the district, and I promise you I don't want them at home. I don't want them at home because I'm working home half the time and I don't want them at home. They need to be in school for their own benefit. But their health and safety is my #1 priority. If you were to ask me, I'd say we stretch it out and see where it goes. But at the end of the day, I think to Vice President Kaminsky's point, it's getting pretty scary. And I know we can't control where they go, but that's the scarier part, is that we can't control where they go, and they're bringing it back in. And that's the scary part, is they're out and about doing whatever they're doing. And listen, before I came here, I was in the weight room at Crestwood High School. And if I gotta tell you, if not every 30 seconds, every minute I'm yelling at a kid for pull your mask up, cover your nose. I kicked the kid out Thursday because he wouldn't listen. It's happening. And what's unfortunate is, and I'm not, by the way, I'm not disregarding, I think I'm agreeing with you in a sense. You can't control, but the problem is I can't control, but they're still around me. And if I can't control where they go and what they bring back around me, and they're putting me in jeopardy, that's the scary part.
The problem is they're going to do that from now till the end of the year. So
But we're in a pandemic, so that's the scary part, is they're
I
bringing back
understand.
a very scary virus,
Can we have, go ahead, Ms. Fawaz.
So I guess to summarize, is your proposal to go virtual after the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday for X time, 5 days, or?
So tentatively, tentatively what I would believe we should do is we go virtual for the week after Thanksgiving. Then the Monday after that, we come back to face-to-face learning. It'll give time for, people that were in close contact, where if they do have symptoms. So let's just go back a step. It's Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving weekend, I'm in close contact with a lot of family members. I don't start having symptoms until 3 days later. That's Tuesday.
Right.
So if you have symptoms on Tuesday and we're virtual, then you have the rest of the week not to bring it back into the school. The problem that we face is that we are not in a normal setting. Everyone that wants us to think and act it's normal, it's not. It's not normal. And the problem that we face, look, I was out, as the board knows, I was out for 2 days. I was out for 2 days. I had a bronchial infection. I couldn't get my head off the couch. One full day, I didn't even check my email. I tested myself for COVID every single day. And thank God I was negative. And then once I was able to get back in the office, I got back in the office. My point of it is in these situations, in the past, I would have worked through that illness. I'm all right, I'm good. I can get through the day. I mean, I was always taught, you're sick or not, if you ain't on a hospital bed, you get to work. And that's how I was raised. But with COVID, it's different now. And my concern, again, is people that are in close contact over the holiday, don't have symptoms until Tuesday, Wednesday. Next thing I know, I'm afraid that we'll have to close down for 2 weeks, not just 1 week. That's
So-
where my concern comes in.
And I get that, and I think we all see the numbers going up, and with everyone, with the holidays, I think you're right, everybody does get together, and we can't control what they do outside of here, but we can control what happens inside of here. So, I guess as a preemptive move, I would probably tend to agree with that, as much as my kids don't want to, my kids, just like yours, they do not want to be at home.
What are we basing it off of? I'm sorry.
Hold
I
on.
feel-
Are you done, Ms. Foss?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Danielle.
So one of the things that I just wanted to remind the board about is that people who are vaccinated, the age groups that we're responsible for in this district are the least vaccinated. They are the least vaccinated population walking around, and of no fault of their own, right? So we have a responsibility just, to try to keep them safe, because it's not their fault that they're not vaccinated. So that's just something that I wanted everybody to keep in mind.
No, I was just gonna say, we are having a vaccination clinic, correct?
We
That's
are.
what I read.
First date, Kristen, is
December 3rd,
December 3rd here at Riverside Middle School. From what time to what time?
3:30 to 6:30.
3:30 to 6:30. So for all children ages 5 through 12. And then the follow-up second vaccine, I believe, will be 2 weeks later. So yes, we are doing that. So we are being proactive. And we've worked closely with the county to make sure that we're being proactive.
Yep.
I will tell you, Trustee Elziat makes a very valid point. If we gave these children vaccines, let's say back in September, then this conversation would be different.
Mr. Noon.
So can I say that, although I understand what you're saying about giving them vaccines, first of all, I'm going based off of what we can control. So our families are off for an additional week. Are we expecting them to all just stay home now? Because apparently they're not staying home right now, and that's why we have the spread that we do throughout the whole state. Second of all, again, we offered the virtual option, and I don't want anybody to think that this is me just, wanting my kids. Mine are not really little. My youngest is in 7th grade. I just know that when I look at the numbers, I feel like I'm not comfortable saying that we just go based off of just trend alone and not numbers, because what happens, so we're gonna come back for a week, and not to say that those kids weren't already together, and we're gonna have cases continuing through that week as well, and then send them into Christmas, where we know they're all gonna be together anyways. Again, the numbers in connecting them to the school are fairly low. The spread happening in the school is fairly low. Kids, but they are, he just said that they were.
They're less than they were when Riverside closed, but we had
No.
8 cases to.
And what we're finding in the elementary, to refer to what Trustee Janoon is mentioning, is that there are more cases that we're finding that there was a positivity exposure at home, not at school.
Right.
But at the same time, we find that out after the fact. We got to send the child home and then do close contact tracing for the other children. So it's not that the positivity rate is increasing because of close contact in
school,
school, but
right.
we're still quarantining the 3-4 kids that were in close contact.
100%. I guess I'm just looking at our numbers, and although I know that they're high around, across the state, yes, they're higher for us than they were before, but I guess when I look at the numbers, they're just, do I want anybody to be sick? Of course not.
Is that the one that
But
was sent today?
but when I look at these numbers compared to when we closed Riverside, then why did we wait to close Riverside so late then?
I would like to answer that. We didn't wait. We watched the trends. We identified a trend occurring at each grade level.
But when you
And then when that
compare-
trend went from 5th grade to 6th grade to 7th grade, we identified a pattern and a trend where in turn, we knew, because we're also getting staph infections, that was going to accelerate. And therefore, that's why we made the decision on Riverside when we did. Additionally, I want to reiterate, what I'm bringing to the table, again, has to do with the fact that we don't know what children are going to bring back after the holiday break.
But I know, all of the families that I know are together every weekend anyways. And I'm sure you know the same, and I'm sure you know the same, as I saw Danielle this weekend as well, and families are all together. Everybody is together, and
Looking at the numbers.
this is where I'm concerned at making the decision now, and then we have to shut down again when it actually gets to a point where we need to really be concerned. That's my concern, is having to keep shutting down, and shutting down prematurely, even if we're heading into a long weekend. I just feel like we're shutting down prematurely. And I'm not saying that I want anybody sick, that I'm not concerned about the kids. I just feel like we're prematurely going virtual.
Go ahead, Danielle.
So one of the hardest things about holding this seat, I think, and I know there's board members here that have had it a lot longer than I, is it's hard to make decisions, not, based off of your personal feelings. So I don't think that we should make this personal. It's not about my kids. It's not about your kids. It's about all of the kids, and we do have a due diligence and a responsibility as a board to keep the safety of the kids as our number one priority. So I think, trust me, making this decision, we're not making it lightheartedly. Maybe we should just in case. I believe that if we make this decision, and I think that we should, that we're doing it in the best interest of, the entire district. It's not just about a few, it's not personal at all. So yes, I did see you this weekend, but that's bringing personal into it, you know?
No,
It's not personal. So
I'm never.
we do have a due diligence as a board to make this decision for
Okay.
district-wide, not just personal.
So-
Also, my second, actually not a comment, is a question. What is the next step, Madam Chair? Do we vote on this? Do we take a recommendation? What do we?
You can't vote now.
Well, may I, please? I apologize if I am overstepping, but I feel I need to say this. I don't believe this is a voting item.
Oh,
I believe that this is a decision that the superintendent makes, just like a snow day. Madam Chair, I can see you're upset with me saying that, but why, is there something I'm not aware of?
No, I'm not, I disagree. I think that it is a voting issue. I think that everybody, how do you know how I'm gonna vote?
Because
You know what I'm trying to say? How do I know how everybody else is gonna vote? I don't know if everybody agrees with it. I mean, I think that it should be voted on.
But
well,
it's not
Yusuf
a
makes
po-
a good point. Is this like a,
It's
like he
not a
closes
policy
snow,
matter.
school for snow, we don't vote on that?
It's not a matter of policy.
We're talking about students. What's in the best interest of students also. I'm gonna tell you, this is not an easy decision for me. I'm torn because I'm one of those people that believes, of course, in the safety of children and the adults. We've had this discussion back and forth numerous times, okay? But at the same time, I'm also concerned about how far back are we setting these children? So I believe that it is a voting issue. You don't know how I'm gonna vote, but everybody needs to be heard. Everybody needs to be heard. Go ahead, Mr. Sabah.
Aside from what is or is outside of the realm of the scope of what the superintendent does, I mean, the bylaws would direct us towards an answer, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
And what do the bylaws say about this?
I couldn't tell you, I'd have to look, if you can look it up for me, please.
So can I just say really quick.
Go ahead.
I 100% agree with you. I was not in any way trying to make that personal, and maybe, I apologize if that's how you took it, because I was talking about myself as well. I wasn't trying to say that, it wasn't a
Only
matter
because
of-
you said I saw Danielle this
No,
week,
Danielle,
so
my
it's
point
not
is, because that
personal.
was first what came, so in no way is it personal. I am not saying that we shouldn't close if it's necessary. 100%, when we when we went virtual that week, I have a 7th grader. It affected my child as well, who I watched online, as I've showed several people, laying on her bed sideways doing her classes, and it was like literally walking into the room and she's laying down like this online. So when we shut down, when we went virtual, I had no issues with it, because it was necessary. So I do feel like we have to have something to measure, as we've discussed in the past, when we go virtual and when we don't. That is my issue. I'm not comfortable with saying, I'm just gonna decide, and I apologize, Dr. Masalam, but if you're just gonna say that then it is a decision that you get to make alone, then I'm especially not comfortable with leaving it just to say, well, and not because I don't think you're doing what's best for the kids. 100% I believe that is the case, but again, I just feel like there has to be discussion. We need to agree when we feel this is the bait, like here is where we go. If we hit this number, or we see numbers like in this building, based on the amount of students in this building that are affected, then we go virtual.
Is that fair to say? Can we come up, would you be okay with coming up with a plan where we could say, if we get to this point, this is our plan number 1. If we get to this point, plan number 2. Can we do that?
I can't answer that.
Okay. Mr. Baidoon?
So, we're fortunate enough to have a board meeting
Okay.
as this proposal came to us prior to the break, right? But let's put ourselves in shoes of, there's an outbreak.
Hold
and-
on. I'm sorry, to correct that. It did not come prior to the break. It came to us today.
Okay, so,
Today's
but the
prior to
break
the
is
break.
Prior to the meeting.
I'm
This
saying-
meeting
okay,
is
I
prior-
thought that, okay.
This meeting is prior to the break.
Okay.
Right, so we're fortunate enough to be able to discuss it. But if we look at all the children in the district, and hopefully I'm wrong, but assuming there's a outbreak later in the future, and there's no board meeting scheduled, right? And for us to put something, I would say, a rule or some kind of mandate to say, if X numbers hit, then we close. I don't think that's fair to the children of the district either. I think it needs to be an actionable cause, just like an ice day or a snow day or whatever, and I think it's gotta be a collective decision that's brought to us like it was today, but at the end of the day, my children's safety and my parents' safety, because sometimes they pick up my kids,
Absolutely.
are being, could be jeopardized because certain numbers weren't hit, and that's where we're gonna close. I don't think we should have a set number. I think if we feel we should close as a district, which comes from Dr. Masalam, I think he's gotta make that call if there's jeopardy to our kids. But, today, we're here discussing it prior to the break. I get that. But what if it happens next week? We don't have a set meeting, then what happens?
So what I'm asking is for some guidelines to be set. I mean, it doesn't have to be numbers. What guidelines are we looking for? So we don't have to, keep repeating everything.
It's the information that I shared with the board through my commentary as well as in the memo, that we're noticing a trend that is fearful that this trend is gonna continue with the time off. That was where we're going with the trends. I know that's not comfortable for some people, and I'm not trying to say that, I don't want the board's input. I have never said that, nor have I ever made that type of comment. But what I'm saying is there are certain things that I, as a superintendent, have to make a quick decision on. And I don't believe there has ever been a time since I've been superintendent that I haven't shared everything with everyone. So
Nobody's
I
saying
want,
that.
but I don't
Nobody's
want
saying that.
anyone to insinuate as such.
No,
I
nobody.
apologize if I did not
Nobody's
insinuate
saying
that you
that.
did not share with, and that's not what I meant. I was just saying that having a conversation, Yusuf, you really did not take it that way.
Okay,
I'm
let's
talking-
move,
I'm
let's
talking-
move on.
I'm
sorry.
speaking in
I have
gen-
two people whose
I'm
hands
speaking
are
in
up on the side.
generalities. I'm
Okay.
speaking in generalities.
Go ahead, Ms. Kaminsky.
Okay, a few things. First off, my understanding is a cluster at a school is 3 positive cases, and from my understanding, we have at least 3 positive cases at each school. Is that correct, Dr. Masalim?
We have, in every school, we have at least one, in all schools, in some schools, we have more.
Okay. That was one thing. And then the other thing is Dr. Masalim brought up something interesting, and I never really thought about it. I mean, I know the board hires and fires, and I know we set curriculum, and I know we approve financial things, and I know COVID's something new to all of us. I don't know that the board votes on whether we're open or closed based on COVID numbers. We don't vote on snow days. We don't say 3 inches of snow because it could be black ice, and we could have no snow and just have black ice. So I think we're gonna have to get a clarification from our attorney at MASB.
Well, we don't want to make it a superintendent said, a board said. We want to be able to make a collective decision
No, but-
where we all are happy with the decision.
Well, and I understand that, but it may not be something that the board can have input on.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. I mean, I like the input, and I think that's good. I just don't know that this is something that falls under our jurisdiction. That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
We can find that out.
I'd like to
We
hear the
can-
bylaws though. I mean, see-
So what I'm trying to, what to look, because I'm trying to look it up. but
Hold on, Najah. Go ahead, Danielle.
So I'd like us to be a board that's proactive, not reactive. Like, when the superintendent gets reports that there's a huge snowstorm coming, right? How many times in my life have I seen schools be closed and then the snow didn't come? Or it wasn't as bad as everybody projected? Now, am I complaining that my kids had to stay home for a day and it didn't snow? Or am I happy that the superintendent made a decision based off of keeping my kids safe? So I'm wholeheartedly backing our superintendent and his decision, and I think that it is his decision. Because I don't want to be woken up at 3 in the morning for us to take a vote if it's snowing.
Oh, nobody ever said anything
No, what I'm
about
saying is
having
it's
to take a vote
it's
with
not
them.
our job.
I don't know
I'm
where
just
that
saying
came
it's
from.
not
but
our job.
I've never said that he
If
has
it's
to
not
call
our
me.
job, I don't want
Yeah.
to vote.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Salwa. What'd you have to say?
I would just say that this is part of the superintendent's responsibility. And just like there's been a lot of other issues where, namely me, I like to micromanage certain things. This would be one of those things that I think we're the opposite on. I don't think we should micromanage. I think it's part of your responsibility to look at the data and make a decision, an educated decision on what to do. I'm okay with him doing it and not involving us, because I think that is part of his job. That's his performance. I mean, he's the one that should be looking at this and deciding what's best for our kids and the district
Absolutely.
as a whole.
But we're gonna make sure to get clarification, because then where do you draw the line with the board's power? I mean, you have to understand that, you know, what decisions do we help make and vote on? And what decision do we leave? And I hope you don't take offense to that, because I'm not trying to offend you in any way. I want us to work together. We have built a great relationship and we want to continue it. I'm not against you. I want you to understand that. I just want to make sure that we don't give up the power that we have also. Go ahead,
Madam
Mr.
Chair, I
Sabo.
wholeheartedly agree with that statement. 100% agree with you all the way through and through. I think we do serve a purpose, and I also think that based on this particular
Yes.
topic, right? Now, that's not to say that all this is worthless. Like, you don't need us anymore, just go through
Right.
this and make your own
Sure.
decisions. No, that's not what I'm
Right.
saying. I agree with the chair. This is, but again, to this particular point, when it talks
I
about the
understand.
day-to-day safety of the children
I
in between our
understand.
2-week meetings, I have to trust him with my children, his children, and all of our children. And that's why I'm okay with, you know, are they in school, are they virtual? It's not like we're taking them out and saying, sit at home for a week and do nothing, right? And I know, trust me, to Ms. Janoon's point, yes, I've seen the, I'm awake, I'm early in class. No, you're not, you're snoring. So I get it. But at the end of the day, I have to trust him with this particular
I
type of
totally
decision-making.
understand. I
Yeah.
want to make it very clear. That is why that I asked, but we have this discussion today. So it's not just a one-sided decision.
You're absolutely right, I agree with
So,
you.
you know, right, Dr. Masalim?
did, yeah.
Didn't I said,
Yes.
you know, let's discuss this. I was in a meeting with Risa myself today, and I said to him, let's discuss this tonight, and that's why he changed the agenda, because I think everybody should have, you know, should be able to give their input.
And Madam Chair, if I may,
Sure.
if I wanted to feel as if I'm in control, which I'm not saying
Right.
so, I would never bring something
Of
like this and
course.
say, let's have a conversation.
Right, and I agree with you. So it's okay for us to.
Oh, of course.
we can
I've
agree
always
to
said,
disagree.
I've always said, I'm always open up for discussion because it
Absolutely.
opens my mind as well.
Okay, that's why we have to bring it to your attention, and you
Yeah,
bring it to our
of
attention.
course.
Anybody else? Ms. Janoon?
So apparently I've offended a couple of people today, and I'm sorry because it's not my intention at all, but.
We're just
I-
talking.
No, no
John.
one was
We're just
offended.
talking.
Okay, so it's not even that I was saying it had to be voted on, because I wasn't even sure where that stood. I was just saying, having some sort of idea so that families, including the board, are not surprised when we go virtual, because we know that we're there. We're community, we're watching the numbers and we see this happening, we are close, and maybe I didn't articulate that properly, but that's where I was saying, is if we as a board sat down and said, okay, we know that we get to a certain, an area where we say, okay, it's coming, we most likely will be closing down, or going virtual. I have lost so much, and I'm sure you have, probably more than I have,
It's not
lost
an
a lot
easy
of sleep
decision.
over this.
It's not an easy decision. Again, I feel as if, I don't want to cheat the
One
children.
more thing.
Go ahead.
If we don't, just so the families are aware, if we don't reach a certain percentage of attendance, we make those days up at the end of the year then, I'm assuming,
So well, yes and no. Let me explain.
with snow days. We would
Well,
use up snow days first?
First, we have, in the contract that we negotiated with our teachers, we've built in, I believe, 3 additional days, Dr. Lazar? 4 additional days on top of the snow days, which are 6, so that's 10 days. So we have those 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
But additionally, with the pandemic, the state allows us to use, if we have to go virtual, the teachers take attendance the same way they take attendance if they're face-to-face, and we're still okay. That is one of the leniencies the state has given us. Because I will tell you, this is a conversation, I have this conversation with other superintendents, like, hey, what's going on? What's happening? And all of our communities are so different. Even, between North Dearborn Heights and South Dearborn Heights, and, our communities are different. And, we all were in agreement that we're not gonna do something just because somebody else is doing it or not. And I'm not saying anything, but
Yeah.
the reason why I'm saying is because we all understand, because even my colleagues in D7 and in Robichaud, okay, Dr. Stiles Simmons, him and I speak on a regular basis. Him and I talk, but we know that we're in different situations.
Our families are so,
And so the thing that it comes down to is, my whole point, and yeah, you're right, I've lost a lot of sleep on this.
Oh,
I really have.
It's not an easy decision.
And on the weekends, I have Dr. Lazar and our nurse, updating me on COVID cases over the weekend. Updating me on, hey, Yusuf, I just got a call, this person was in contact with this person, and then it's a trickle effect. And then next thing I know, Janine Maziad is on the phone on a Sunday, calling people, okay, who are you with? Who were you with? And we're just, I'm fearful.
my fear, in all honesty, is we shut Riverside down with virtual. We're doing it again now. My fear is it has to happen to them again. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm just very concerned about some of these kids.
It's
and
my fear too.
And I know,
I had a conversation, I apologize, I Trustee Fawaz, I apologize, but I do want to say this, and please, Madam President made a very good point. She's worried about the success of our students academically. I'm with you 150,000%.
That's my biggest fear. I'm not gonna-
100%.
It's about the
And
children.
it is. I just had a conversation the other day with someone, and I said, everyone in Lansing is acting as if we're back to normal, and we're not. Even though our kids are back to school, when I have 10% of my kids in quarantine on a regular rotating basis, they're not getting the same education as the other 90% that are in the classroom.
True.
And I said, and for us as a community, see, the thing is, I need the community's help, not just to stop the spread, but to also speak up to the politicians and to stop putting the stress on our teachers and our educators and our students to do well on some test that they have not been prepared for 3 years. It's time for the community to step up and say enough is enough. I can't be the only one standing on a soapbox doing this. It breaks my heart when I come here and I look at a 12-year-old who the last time they had a reading lesson, a strong reading lesson, was when they were 10. And now they're reading as if they're 2 years behind, and we're trying to catch them up. It breaks my heart. But at the same time, and I say this passionately to the community because I need them to step up,
I agree.
but at the same time, I have to say, okay, how do I close the gap for this kid's education? But how do I keep him safe?
That's the point. Go ahead,
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Baidoon.
I went off on a
No,
tangent.
you're fine,
So,
Mr. Baidoon.
Dr. Masalam, I'm gonna reference back to what you said earlier. The state, they give you guidelines and assumptions, but they don't tell you exactly what to do. I don't want my child's safety, or any district child's safety, or any child for that matter, going by guidelines, right? And I'll say this on the record to everyone here. If there's a safety issue, we need to address it. We can't wait for meetings. We can't wait for who makes the call. We have to do it right away. And I'm not just talking about COVID. I'm talking about in general, right? So this is a blanket statement, and I agree with Ms. Janoun that our kids should be in school, absolutely. My daughter, I can share that, she was significantly behind for reading, right? And she's just starting to catch up to where she was. And it's terrible, right? But at the end of the day, I'd rather have her healthy and work with her extra to get her where she needs to be, as opposed to just worry about guidelines. And I never want our children, because we're worried about a state guideline. I want our children's safety first, and then go from there. I just wanted to make that statement.
Madam Chair?
Just to your point, I will definitely get legal's opinion on that, because I don't, we're not gonna overstep our boundaries if we don't have to, but I just want us to always be part of the discussion. That's my point. I just, I don't want you to think we're micromanaging, because it's not about micromanaging, it's about making sure that we are part of the discussion.
And please note, Madam Chair, I have always made sure that the board was part of the conversation.
Of course.
I have always
And
done
that's
so.
what, we wanna continue down that
Thank
road. Ms. Fawaz, anything?
Yeah, so I wanted to say, I've gone through a lot of the bylaws a couple times over. No, I don't have them memorized, okay? But because this is so unprecedented, there is nothing in there about this. So it's not going to tell us which way to go on this. It's gonna be something as a chair, I think, that we have to look at and decide collectively, because you're not gonna find it in there.
Okay. Ms. Janoun?
So again, going back to, it's not a matter of this having to come to the board for a vote, because I don't think that it necessarily needs to come to the board for a vote. Again, it was just having a kind of an understanding so that we were all on the same page, and we didn't have to assume or guess or say, hey, let me look at the numbers and where they were the last time, and say, okay, we went virtual. Now looking at the numbers, well, it doesn't really, to me, doesn't quite make sense. So now why are we going virtual? So not having to have a set number, but again, just something to look at. And who would have thought we would be here? So to Ms. Fawaz's point, nobody would have thought that that had to be in the bylaws.
If I may just add one thing, Madam Chair. Because I don't want to give the specific numbers because it was in a confidential memo. If you look at those numbers and you look at the trend, if you have 3 more outbreaks, you're looking at an additional 25 in one day.
Can I add one thing?
I'm just,
And I know-
my thing is,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
when you look at those numbers, that's what I mean by trends.
Yeah.
And the problem with setting a number, no,
Not a set
no, I'm not
number.
arguing, madam.
Okay.
I'm just, because the community's watching, and they want to know, hey, what are you guys thinking? That's why I'm saying this. It's not, I want the community to know, I'm not arguing with the board. We're having conversation.
A passionate
Yeah.
conversation.
The way I look at this, because it's new to us, right? I look at this as a slippery slope. Because the minute we establish a number, well then what about all the kids before that number? What if you could have done something before that number? These are all the things that go through my head as a superintendent. I know the board gets calls from parents. I understand that. I as well. I get emails. Kristen, all of us. We all do. And my response to every parent is, I evaluate the numbers on a daily basis, multiple times a day, and we will make a decision that is in the best interest of the entire district. That is always my response. Because if I get into the specifics, yeah, there may be a little bit more happening at one school than another school, but it's isolated. That number might be high, but it's isolated. We controlled it. But when it spreads out, we can't control it. And that's why I keep talking about trends. Because that's how I'm looking at it. I'm on the phone constantly with the nurse, with the schools.
I know what you're talking about. Like I said, this past weekend, I've received quite a few calls and from different groups and organizations in the district. They were very concerned about us canceling. You know, they've had these events planned. You know, are we going to cancel everything on them? Teachers have been telling the students that, you know, prepare yourself. You know, we're going to start giving you things so you can be ready to go virtual. We're going virtual. I said, well, I don't know how accurate that is. I said, because Dr. Masalam hasn't said that to us. We haven't discussed it. I'm sure we will be discussing it. So that's my only, I don't know what's happening in the schools because I haven't heard the teachers talk. But if we can just like clarify that it has to come from this body with the superintendent.
Yeah, I will tell you right now, people called Kristen and said, we're hearing these rumors.
Right.
And Kristen's like, what rumors? And what happens in this area is people like, you know, people talk, this district's doing this district's doing that, are you guys doing this?
Right.
And I'm gonna tell you a true story, and forgive me. Somebody called my wife and said, hey, is Crestwood doing A, B, C, or D?
Hello.
Hold on. And my wife said, why? Well, because I heard from our district that we might be doing it, so we thought maybe Crestwood was doing it. God honest truth.
No, I believe it.
My wife looked at me and I just started laughing. My point of it is everybody likes to speculate.
Absolutely.
We did send an email. I had all the principals send an email to the teachers and to the parents a week ago, before this conversation even started, and on a regular basis to make sure your online information is correct. We do that constantly because of what we ran into the first time with people not being prepared. It had nothing to do with this conversation.
No, I believe you.
No,
It was
but
probably
immediately people began to
misconstrued.
speculate.
Yeah, but like I say, I received quite a few phone calls. People were concerned. We have this event planned. You know, what are you guys doing? Are you going to wait till the last minute to throw us off? And again, like I said, if, what's her name's coming? Dana Nessel. Are we just going to say, We'll talk about it.
We'll contact her and we'll
Okay.
reschedule, and I'm sure she'll understand because we're talking about COVID. It's not as if we want to reschedule because it doesn't fit our planning.
okay.
She doesn't want to be around.
Anything else from the board?
I said she don't want to.
Anything else before we adjourn?
Does he have other items that he was going to talk about?
No, that was it.
That was
for
the only
tonight.
thing I know, because it's 6:30 and Moby wants us at his swearing in. Anything else?
I have a different topic.
Go ahead.
One of the parents approached me at the robotics conference with concern about Hillcrest, saying that, like, just they're really concerned about, they said every time they go by there, I guess they live right there too, and their kids go there, they're finding a lot of, like, liquor bottles, marijuana smell, things like that, and,
Yeah.
and I know this is, you know, big, but they were asking, like, maybe fencing, of the difficulty of, you know, one teacher to a ratio of, you know, 30 students, sometimes more, like at recess, and especially after it gets dark now with daylight savings, you know, them concerned about who's actually going through there, because it's right at like Heinz Park.
Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of this is not within our control or power, and I don't know what we can do to alleviate some of their, you know.
I can tell you what we have done already.
Okay.
And because we're aware. Number one, we've asked the Dearborn Heights Police to do additional, you know, and they have been. They drive they do additional sweeps of the area in the evenings and on the weekends. It does back up to Hines Park and Hines Drive, but that area is not our land. That is the Wayne County DNR land. So we can't put a fence, we can't do anything with that. We would have to get permission. Second and third, the classroom ratio, the 1:30, well, that's the reason why we're building more classrooms, so we can get more teachers and reduce
But I
our
mean, like,
class
in
sizes.
supervising them outside.
Well, recess, every teacher is responsible for their own class. Lunchtime, we are short lunch monitors. We're trying to hire more, but teachers have been helping us tremendously with that as well. So though we have been trying to find ways to resolve that issue as well. But I
Thank you.
appreciate you, because we are aware of it, and we're trying to address it.
Yeah, and I saw them approach the principal too.
Yeah, anytime, please.
Okay, anything else? Move to
Madam Chair,
adjourn? Yes.
motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Kaminsky, seconded by Ms. Elzayat
6:31.
at 6:31. Thank you, and we'll see you in a little bit for the regularly scheduled meeting.